Welcome to Morrison Madness. I'm Don.
I'm Lachelle.
This is our friends Jeff and Susan. If you were here for the last podcast, you sort of have some background on where this is possibly going. If not, I recommend that you should stop listening and go back to the other podcast.
Yes.
Or you will be a little bit lost.
Yes, because you won't know what the gold-toothed deer is.
Exactly.
But if you really don't have time and you really want to just listen to this one, you should know that Jeff and Don went to grade school, high school together. Mm-hmm. So we're talking some reminiscing stories today.
And a funny, not related component of this is, so Jeff and I kind of lost contact with each other about the time we were 20. And then about the time that you and I started dating, about 2009, I got a message from Jeff on Facebook. We hadn't talked for 20 years.
Right.
And he said, "Hey, Don, you want to get together for a coffee?" I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great."
Yep.
And it was honestly like we were back at a party in high school, like we had never missed a day of being friends together.
Right.
You know, I mean, our lives had gone completely different directions. You know, at this point, we both had kids and had been through all of the adventures that adulthood brings you.
And then some.
Right.
And some.
You know, but
both real and imagined.
Right.
yes. But you know, the relationship was still the same. I mean, we could still joke with each other and insult each other in that friendly, humorous way. And it's been wonderful.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
You know, we've had this podcast going now for how many months?
7 months, something like that.
So, going back, again, a lot of these podcasts are about what you like to call Schadenfreude. Mishaps that have happened to Don.
Happiness and misfortune of Don.
Right.
Yes.
Don has lots of them. Trips to the ER and all kinds of other sad woe-be-Don tales.
Yes.
Jeff was involved in a few of those.
Yes.
And even if he wasn't involved, he was there immediately after.
Right.
So we thought...
Got blamed.
Yes. I don't know that Jeff ever got blamed for any of them, but at least not in my case.
Oh.
So I
not by you, anyway.
Not by my parents. Not by anybody that I know.
Your parents wouldn't blame anybody other than you.
No.
They knew better. They knew it was you.
I'm to blame.
You can't hide that. That's good
So
parenting.
We thought we would have Jeff on to retell these stories.
Yeah.
So the first story that I wanted to focus on, and we may veer into other stories, I don't, depending on Jeff's memory and rememory and my rememory.
Rememory?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure. That should be interesting.
We just make up words on this podcast,
that.
yes.
It's very good. Nice
no,
job.
It's not a word, but we're just going to go with it.
When I turned 16, right? So when we were in school, you went to driver's ed, and after you went to driver's ed, you had a piece of paper, and all you had to do was take that up to the DOT or DMV or whoever it is and get your license.
And you lived in Lone Tree.
Right.
The DMV was here in Iowa City.
Right, which is about 16 miles south of Iowa City, Lone Tree is.
Okay, so you had to come up to Iowa City, though, to get your license.
Right. So as soon as school was out, and actually I think I skipped 7th period, I drove up to Iowa City by myself without a license, went to the DOT, gave them my paperwork and the money, and got my license.
And drove back legally.
Yes. And then I drove back to Lone Tree and had some random stranger
quote unquote
buy me a case of beer. And then I picked up Jeff, and we went back to Iowa City, and drove around and drank. And you got to remember, this was 35 years ago.
Right.
You could get away with a lot more than you can now. I don't recommend for anybody to try and do this now.
Please don't do that at home. Don't try this at home.
Yeah, I wouldn't have recommended it 35 years ago, in all honesty, but you are weird in the fact that you can survive this stuff.
And then, once other people that we knew got out of school, we went over to a friend of mine's house to party. And then as the night progressed, we're drinking through this case of beer, and I feel like other people brought other stuff to this party, and then we were watching movies. I don't remember what movies we were watching, and then I recall at one point that I may or may not have went into a different room with a girl, my friend's sister.
Oh, that's always a good thing.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Interior decorating.
Yeah.
Chatter.
Right. Exactly.
I remember waking up and it was 2:00 in the morning, and I was like, "Oh my God, I am so late for curfew." And I came out, and Jeff was sleeping on the couch, and I'm like, "Jeff, we gotta go. We gotta get home." So we hustle out, and we get into my Datsun B210 Sports Coupe, which cost less than the stereo that I had installed in it.
And we should clarify too that your birthday is usually right around Thanksgiving, and I feel like this was on a Wednesday.
But never on Thanksgiving.
No, but I feel like this was like the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes, November 21st, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Right.
The day before.
The day before was your birthday, because that comes into play. I know that about this story. Yes.
And so there are multiple ways that you can get from Iowa City to Lone Tree.
Sure.
I mean, I can think of at least 4 that people normally will take. And we thought it would be in our best interest to avoid...
All the main roads?
Yes, and other people.
Other people. I got to thinking about that route. You mentioned the route. You know, there's multiple ways, and I've got to thinking just now, you picked the longest possible way to get to Lone Tree. You literally did.
Is it like via
I lived
Illinois
in town,
or something?
and you're trying to take the shortcut to your house, which he lives south of town.
This wasn't, and it technically wasn't even a shortcut to my house. It was the
No.
longest way.
Well, you got to make the night last, I guess. And
It was not a good route to take.
No, it wasn't. But it
Then
was,
why did you choose it?
Because they were back roads.
And you
it
didn't think
seemed
you'd
like
see
a
And
any.
I
good
was
idea
16.
at the time.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
That's the point right there. You were 16. It doesn't matter if you're 16 or not. It seemed like a good idea at the time. That's pretty much Don's motto.
Well, so much of life, so much of life involves
I'm
that
pretty
same
sure that's
philosophy.
how we started dating.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
So
I thought she just lost a bet. I didn't
I
understand.
pretty much did. Yes.
the last stretch of there's 3 4-mile stretches, I feel
About,
like,
yeah.
between Iowa City and Lone Tree, and the last 4-mile stretch back road to get to my house has some hellacious hills and S curves on it. And because we were late, I was going as fast as that little Datsun B210 Sports Coupe. For those of you that don't know what that is, this is pre-Nissan. These little boogers would go.
Okay.
It was like a go-kart with doors. They were just a screaming little machine.
It was a
And your
stick,
parents
wasn't
thought
it?
it was a
Yes.
good
It
idea
was a
for you to
stick.
have that kind of car?
Oh yeah, Mom thought that was great. It was a hatchback.
Gets good mileage, all that.
mileage.
Oh, it's
Great
gonna be
mileage.
great.
Didn't think about the fact that it would go 100 and
Oh, we were doing 120.
Yeah.
120
Airborne
miles
on a
an
good
hour.
hill.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I might have to have a chat with Sheila.
So we come up through this hill, right down the hill, up the hill, and then it goes right out of the hills into this S curve. And as we come out of the second part of this S hill, and again, I'm doing about 120 miles an hour.
Right.
I start sliding into this farmer's yard,
Oh no.
which normally wouldn't have been an issue.
Right.
Most people
Normally, yeah.
Most people don't put ginormous fuel tanks of gasoline and diesel fuel
In their
right
front
in
yard.
their front yard.
Right.
Normally it's back, behind the building,
But this farmer had other ideas.
right in the front yard.
Uh-huh.
No ditch. It's flat from the road into his yard, and I start going off into his yard right towards this fuel. Right? So all I can think is you got to get away from
Yeah, you don't want to hit the fuel.
Right, and I'm trying to downshift and hit the brakes and counter steer, and I miss the brake and hit the accelerator.
Oh my God.
He just got his license.
There's
And
a
we-
surprise. Oh yeah, in his defense, right?
We
was an easy
shot
mistake.
across the road, and we were going, again, at a very high rate of speed.
Pretty
Fast.
rapidly.
We didn't even go down in the ditch.
You just shot across.
Shot across the ditch,
Yeah.
and on the other side of the road, this farmer had a fence
You Dukes a hazard.
all along, right?
Yeah.
The thing on the other side of the ditch. And when we hit that fence, we didn't bust through the fence. That car was so light,
It just turned it.
it just turned the car and straightened the car. The fence was bowed way out into his field. And then it just straightened the car out and pulled the car all along that fence until the car stopped very quickly and abruptly at a telephone pole. We were going at
pretty rough.
such a high rate of speed at that point. Still, I don't know. At that point, I don't know how fast we were going. But we were going at such a high rate of speed that we broke the pole off at the base and moved it 15 feet.
Sheared it.
The steering wheel, I had a hold of it so tight. This was before airbags. Not even sure I had a seatbelt on. I know Jeff
Probably not.
didn't.
The only airbags were in the front seat.
Yeah.
And we were breathing a lot of air.
It snapped the steering wheel down around the column to where my hands were stuck to the column.
They were pinned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the engine was pushed back into the dash.
You guys are lucky you
I was just
survived.
gonna say, why did you even survive? That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home.
Don't. No.
It-
Definitely don't.
And again, Datsun B210. What an amazing vehicle.
It can even fly.
That's right. So I came to. It took me a little bit to wake Jeff up. And when I did, it's dark out. I couldn't really see,
Right.
you know, so I didn't know if Jeff was hurt, and if he was, how badly he was hurt. But I had to get Jeff up to help me get my hands free
Right.
from the steering wheel. And I didn't feel like that I was injured other than I had a mouthful of blood and I wasn't sure why.
Okay.
So Jeff helps me get my hands unpinned. We get out of the car. I'm surprised we were able to get the doors open, but the doors did open.
Yeah.
And we walked across the road to
the guy's house.
which was a Westfall. What was his?
Tootie.
Tootie Westfall.
Is
That's
this
right.
the guy that had the gas in the front
Yes.
yard? Oh, good. Okay.
Old Tootie.
Yeah, and he wouldn't answer the door.
I don't blame him.
Well, he probably wasn't at home.
Where would Tootie have been at? that
3
time
o'clock
of
in the morning?
Really?
Late night
Maybe.
poker game?
Was he at the party we had just left? I gotta go with probably not on that. Tootie was a good boy.
Maybe in a loft somewhere.
Brian and Steph were at the party. If there were other people there, I really don't remember them. So then we had to walk,
Right.
and I feel like we walked a good 2 miles.
It's 2 or 3 miles. I think it's on the 3rd mile, or almost to the 3rd mile, where we went. I think south down their driveway.
A friend of mine's house, named Lee Westfall. You met Lee once, but you know her sister Kelly from the Moose, and yeah, they're even their driveway. I feel like their driveway was 8 miles.
It was very long. It was very long.
At that time of morning, it seemed really long, and we knocked on the door, and of course, that it woke the entire family up. It wasn't just her mom or her dad that came and answered the door. The whole family
Sure.
woken up, and then when they answered the door, they turned the light on, and that's the first look that I have at Jeff. Right? And
Jeff hasn't seen himself yet.
Yes, and I remember. I don't think the mom saw Jeff. The mom saw me, but the dad, who was much taller than the mom, saw Jeff and turned white.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
And I turn and look at Jeff, and Jeff looks like something out of a horror movie. He's got little pieces of glass all over, and his hair was fairly short, so you could see all this glass in the top of his head.
That's why
And
you don't have any hair now? Is it the glass just took care? It shaved it right off.
Well,
He's got a big cut right here, and just from here down, it just is like it looked like out of Carrie,
Right.
Right, just blood, and the
Right,
whole front of
just
his shirt
running
is
blood.
drenched.
well, I heard Lee's mom, and she said, "Oh my God!" And then I thought, "This can't look good. This has got to be bad." Because I had touched my head a little bit, and I could tell that it was
Sticky?
all
Sticky?
nasty. And I thought, "Ooh." Well, then they spring the lights on us, and I felt really bad that had to have been a horrific sight.
Yes,
Right.
it did.
And look, it's a zombie apocalypse.
Showing up at our door.
Man, it was bad.
And then at this point, after seeing Jeff, at first I wasn't scared or concerned
Right.
about anything other than, going and getting to somebody's house so that we could get home.
Right.
But then after seeing Jeff, then I'm petrified.
Right.
And then I start thinking about the fact that there's probably not much left of that car. I mean, we hadn't seen the car. I
Yeah,
didn't
we
know
wouldn't have
all
been
of
able to
that
see it.
damage to the
Right.
car at that point.
Right.
But I start thinking about
You didn't
it.
realize that you'd moved the telephone pole.
Had
And then
no
there's
idea.
the telephone
No
pole,
clue.
You know.
None. Didn't know that the fence was all No, none of that.
Right.
But after seeing Jeff, then I'm starting to get more and more concerned, and my parents are pretty strict but lenient. They wouldn't like completely fly off the handle and
Right.
want to kill me. But I have reached
Not outwardly, anyway.
I
Not
have
outwardly,
reached the
yes.
decision
Subtly.
in my wreck-addled brain at 3:00 in the morning that it would not be in my best interest to go home.
Suddenly you'd like to just stay here for a while.
So we convinced the Westfalls to take Jeff home so that Jeff's parents can take him to the hospital, and Don should go to his girlfriend's house.
Of course.
Because his
Always
parents,
a player.
His parents,
Always a player.
his parents wouldn't kill him in front of his girlfriend.
Always a player.
Oh, of course.
So
You
I
go to
went
the girlfriend's house.
when we went in the house, and I heard Lee's mother say, "Well, oh my God," and I'm starting to process in my head, "This has got to be bad. This has got to be bad."
Right.
And I didn't really hurt. I mean,
You
you're
were
still kind of
probably
in
still
a,
in shock.
Yeah, kind of in a
Yeah.
state of shock. But we had walked
And adrenaline and
3.5
whatever.
miles.
Yeah.
Right.
Right before Thanksgiving. So everything had dried up and it was nasty. And
Right.
anyway, so I went into, she goes, "Just go on in the bathroom in there and I want you to wash up a little bit." And that's when I got to see myself. And I look in the mirror and I'm like, "Ugh." Because all it was two eyeballs sticking out of this nasty mass of blood and hair and glass. And I really felt bad that you didn't warn me. Why didn't you tell me I looked that bad? I don't understand. She didn't deserve that.
Instead of coming in the house, I'm supposed to pull you aside and be like, "Dude, you might want to wait outside."
Well, I thought you had. In all of my other accidents, the other guys that are with me are going, "You need to shut up and stay out here. Okay, we'll do the
In
talking.
all my other accidents.
You need to be somewhere else." So,
I would like to make a point of reference here that the majority of the accidents that Jeff has been in, Jeff was not the driver.
the instigator, but not the driver.
That's a relief.
Yes, what a good feeling.
I feel safer. Already.
Do you do most of the driving? That's the question there. It might be safer to let him drive since he's not in an accident when he drives.
I do let him drive.
Okay.
In fact.
Because if you drive, then you're more apt to have an accident, evidently, if Jeff's in the passenger seat. It
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
increases
Cheering
your
you
chance.
on. Go!
Yeah.
You can make that
This is
light.
going to be
I
awesome.
know, right?
And
It's
that
okay,
was-
you can drag that barbed wire fence, and it's miles you can drag
Yes,
it.
we had.
Wait,
Yeah,
that was another story.
that's a whole nother story. Yes. So yes, that was. Yeah, I remember most of the time that I've been in an accident, there's always the driver of the car going, "You need to just shut the hell up. Stay out here. I don't need you up here. Just."
Right.
I remember that very distinctly. It's like it's a normal pattern for some reason.
I don't remember you saying anything on that last stretch of ride home. I remember we had the music going and we were just having
yeah.
a good time. Jeff wasn't like, "Go faster" or "slow down"
right.
or
I didn't know where we were at. I'd never been on the road before.
Jeff was just
I didn't
along
have my
for the ride.
license
and
yet.
we were.
Right. You're
I
just,
know.
15
along
still.
for the ride, right? Right.
So I do remember, and this was a huge, huge thing around town, right? So the police show up to this accident.
Right.
God only knows when the police showed up or who called them. But then they take pictures.
Well, I'm sure somebody called because if you moved a pole 15 feet,
Oh no, the
something,
wires were still
Yeah,
attached.
the wires were still attached.
nothing went down?
No.
Not that I know of.
Really?
Tootie's power was still on. He had a security light out there.
Now a half a breeze blows against him and it takes the
Well,
power out.
When you look at what them poles have been through,
Well, yeah.
They probably
on.
just
That's true.
reset that
Let's
one.
be
Right?
fair.
It's a little bit lower now.
Just balance
So-
it there.
saw
It'll
some
be
flashing
fine.
red lights.
So
on
it didn't in a small town. It doesn't take long for the news to travel, even though it's Thanksgiving
Right.
weekend.
Well,
right?
it probably was a little bit easier because if everybody's
So-
with family that's, around
Well, the
that
police
area.
came and took pictures, and apparently so did other people.
My
Because
folks had pictures
Big-
of your car.
the
Big
pictures got around town pretty quickly, and right there in the center of the dash, right. So you have to understand that the engine has been smashed backwards, but Jeff's head hit the windshield, and you can see
Beautiful cone.
the shape of his head in the windshield poking out, and jammed down in between the windshield and what's left of the upper dash is an empty beer can. And then, of course, there are
Oh, I didn't want to litter.
there are other beer cans all over throughout the car,
Right.
right?
We're
So
picking up cans in the ditch on the way home.
yeah, we're trying to be good citizens.
Yeah.
Environmentally responsible.
So
is what that is.
obviously, Don was, or whoever was driving, because they didn't know who was driving at the time. Whoever was driving had to have been drunk,
Right.
right? That is not the case.
No, because you had fallen asleep for a few hours after you'd been drinking.
Yes.
So you were sobered up.
When I got to the hospital, my mom insisted that they do a drunk test, that they do a blood alcohol test, and I was not drunk. The police interrogated me for hours, and I feel horrible about this to this day. They threatened, they lied to me. I was a teenage kid. I had no idea.
Right.
They threatened me with all kinds of stuff. I wouldn't get a license till I was 21. I was going to go to jail. I was going to end up in juvie. I wouldn't see my parents if I didn't tell them who sold me that beer.
Oh.
And I felt horrible, and I finally gave in and told them. I felt like the biggest piece of crap in the world.
Right.
And he gave me the what for about it, and he had every right to.
Yeah.
Thankfully he forgave me. He got off with a warning. Because I was not drunk when I drove home.
Right.
I was driving stupid, was speeding,
Right.
was driving reckless.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. And at 16, I don't care how many years you've been driving, you're not that great a driver.
No.
We had Thanksgiving the next day, and after we went up to the emergency room and got that all done, I had, was it like 5 or 6 stitches in my nose somewhere up there. Well, the next day we got to go to my grandma's house
Right.
for Thanksgiving dinner, and all my cousins are there, aunt and uncles are there, and everybody only has one question: what happened to your nose? And I wasn't really able to dodge that because, like you said, good news travels fast, but bad news travels really fast.
Right.
And so all of my aunts knew. So then all my cousins knew, and they're like, "Hey, what happened last night?" And they're giving me all the. And then so I wrestled. So my first time I got to wrestle, when I got back, I had to wear that hockey mask thing.
Oh, sure.
The
To
Jason
protect that.
mask, yeah, to protect that
Protect the stitches.
stitches. Yeah, that was weird. I only did that once.
So, and believe it or not, the only injury that I had out of all, I was sore as hell the next day. Every
Yeah.
I bet.
part of my body hurt. I had one little cut right here, and there was a crack in the side window where they said I must have banged my head on the
So one cut near your eyebrow.
side window. Right, and it was just a very tiny one, didn't even need a stitch. But apparently, they're guessing that when the steering wheel collapsed down around like this, I came forward and hit my mouth on the steering wheel. So that piece of skin that most people have there,
From their
on
nose.
the inside,
Onto their top jaw.
right,
Yeah.
mine's gone. Mine got ripped out, and they're like, there isn't really any point in sewing that back together. It's
just
would
a seam.
It wouldn't heal
Right.
very well.
Yeah.
And it'd cause you more pain. Yeah, so I don't have that. My upper lip's not attached to.
And so
anything.
all of this because that gold tooth deer jumped out of the ditch. And you swerved to avoid him. There he was, grinning and everything. Had that gold tooth laying in there.
That's what distracted me, and that's why I started sliding towards those.
And who
those
wouldn't
giant
have
fuel
done
tanks.
that? And
Right? You see a
you
gold
give
tooth
any
deer
driver
that
the
big.
same circumstances, they couldn't have done anything different. I'm
Right.
sure you did.
I
all
don't care if
could
you would have
do.
had a Dodge Charger, Dodge Hemi pickup truck. You wouldn't have been able to. My Datsun B210 avoided that deer, saved his life. Audubon would be proud of me. PETA would be happy for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
good lord.
Probably would have gotten some sort of accommodation.
You would
Right.
think so.
A certificate, a
Sacrifice,
plaque, something.
sacrifice that beautiful Datsun B210.
So evidently,
For that
then
deer.
it seems like then that was sort of the initial run-in with the gold-toothed deer. And as
Even though we didn't talk about it,
Right.
because
It was
we
very
didn't
low-key,
think
very
we didn't,
hush-hush,
we
very
didn't think
hush-hush.
people would believe us.
Right. Right. The
believe that.
next one, the next accident, they brought up the gold tooth deer, and you were like, "Yeah, we saw
Exactly.
I
exactly.
remember. It was
I
like
know
it was
that.
like a UFO sighting at the Walmart
Right.
parking lot. you know?
Exactly.
Right.
There I was. He just come
And I
right
said,
on
Ethel,
by.
don't look.
Ethel. She did.
But it's too late.
So there were several accidents associated with that same gold-toothed deer over the next couple of years.
And you even got a spot in your yearbook.
It did. Ended up, so it's a credible story. We didn't make this up. This actually happened. So yes, it's in the yearbook. It seems like there was We were trying to think of this earlier. I don't remember how many accidents were associated with this particular animal, but several.
I feel like there was 6 to 8 easy.
I think
Joe Icenoggle, Mickey, Jimmy at least once, if not twice. Brett, Rusty.
yeah.
I feel like there was a couple other ones.
So do you feel that your group was targeted
By
by
this
the
deer.
gold-toothed deer? You think he sought out this particular
I
crowd?
hadn't thought of that. Venison targeting.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
I mean,
Maybe.
You know, I'll tell you this. I feel like John Swales as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I feel
John
like...
had the pop machine incident too.
Yes. Everybody outside of... Rick lived in town, but every other person other than Brett lived south of town.
That's true.
Oh.
a target area.
Yeah.
Probably the home turf.
Kind
Right.
of.
And it was
Gold
kind of
tooth
that,
deer.
and it was kind of that
Vendetta-based.
southwest side of
It is.
of town, which is closer to hills.
And he was sighted in hills, you said in the last episode.
Later on,
Well,
yeah.
you see now, there you go. It's
Right.
not unreasonable to expect it.
I feel like National Geographic should come out and do a...
Absolutely.
You know, and thinking maybe that would be a good sponsor for the show.
And I'm
National
sure
Geographic,
to
we're
this
talking
day
about
that
nature.
gold
We
tooth-
do need a
tooth
sponsor.
deer. We do.
Yeah.
We do need a sponsor, but I'm sure that
thinking
gold
Mutual
tooth
of
deer is still
Omaha.
running
Mutual
around.
of Omaha,
He probably
Wild
is.
Kingdom.
Wild Kingdom. What about
Marlon
Mutual?
Perkins.
Marlon
Oh,
Perkins, there you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Absolutely.
He's got to have like descendants or something that are carrying
Right.
it on. You should.
Oh, I'm sure this gold tooth deer, big enough, strong enough. He's still going.
Oh, yeah,
you know
he's
who would
not
be,
gone.
I'll
Right.
bet,
No, no.
I'll bet that
No.
guy that was on the Tonight Show that always brought the animals on, Jack.
Oh,
I can't think of his name. I'll bet
Yeah.
he could come down and tame that buck-toothed deer, that gold-toothed
What
deer.
was the guy that used to wrestle the alligators? He could do that.
oh yeah.
Crocodile.
Crocodile.
You're Crocodile Dundee.
That's
No.
a movie.
That's why I know. That's where I was going.
But he wasn't he like Crocodile Jim? or
Steve
something?
Irwin.
Steve Irwin. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right on the
Perhaps.
tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
goodness. I don't know how you survived childhood
It's been an interesting run.
Or adulthood.
Yes.
or adulthohold. Every day is a miracle that Don is still with us.
I'm still in adulthood, so I haven't fully survived it. That's all I can tell
So
you.
the only way you can survive it is to die, though.
Right?
That doesn't. Philosophically, that's very challenging.
It
Right.
is.
It's very challenging.
If you get to adulthood, you have survived childhood. But do you ever really survive adulthood? You'd have
have
just
to
have to
die
live
I'm trying
forever.
hard not to.
He is trying hard not to.
Pretty good observation.
There is that one song we usually play it at like Name That Tune and stuff. I'm not afraid of getting older
Right.
because it's one less day of dying young.
Right.
Yeah, you try and push the boundary on that every day, just so you know. Every day there's something.
Well, you can be
I like to
boring.
keep shit
He's probably
interesting.
got a little memo posted on the
I know,
mirror
right?
where he brushes his teeth so he doesn't forget that.
My corporate philosophy, as opposed to yours, which has got to be something about nothing quite like living on the jagged edge. My philosophy is a high degree of predictability is the hallmark of a well-lived life. I don't like surprises.
If I had a life motto, it would be, let's see what we can fuck with next.
Well, that's what I was thinking. To be a little bit more on the jagged edge there.
Kind of a game on, kind of.
Hold my beer.
Yes. Yes. That
Dot,
right
dot,
there.
dot.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
Yes. And that I think is a good place to take a pause.
I think you're right.
It's an excellent place.
Thank you for joining us on Morrison Madness. You can check us out on all the social medias, all the podcast places, YouTube.
Yep, absolutely.
Until next time, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you during the next episode.
Take care.